Travis O'Connor barely had time to think as he rushed into the veterinary clinic, his 7-year-old daughter, Harper, gripping his hand tightly. The small golden retriever puppy in his arms whimpered softly, its paw swollen and tender. "Daddy, is Max going to be okay?" Harper's blue eyes were filled with worry. Travis pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Of course, sweetheart, the vet's gonna fix him up." The clinic was packed, people murmuring to each other as they waited. Travis scanned the room for an open seat when he noticed a woman sitting alone in the corner, her face pale, eyes red-rimmed like she had been crying. A small white cat lay in a carrier at her feet, unmoving. Something about her struck him. Maybe it was the way she held herself, like she was trying to keep it together but barely managing. Without thinking, he approached. "Hey, are you okay?" The woman blinked up at him, startled. Up close, she was stunning: long dark hair, full lips, and deep brown eyes that held so much emotion it was impossible to look away. "I don't know," she admitted softly. "I think my cat is really sick." Harper tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, we should help her." Travis gave his daughter a small smile before turning back to the woman. "Do you need anything? Water? Someone to talk to?" Her lips curved slightly, though it didn't completely erase the sadness from her expression. "You're really kind, but you don't have to do that." He shrugged. "I know what it's like to be in a vet's office, hoping for good news. It's the worst feeling." She looked at him for a long moment, then exhaled shakily. "Her name's Luna. She stopped eating yesterday, and now she won't even move. I'm scared." Harper stepped closer, peeking at the carrier. "She's really pretty. I bet she's just tired and needs some medicine." The woman gave Harper a watery smile. "I hope so." Before Travis could say more, a nurse called out, "Travis O'Connor and Max." He stood, adjusting Max in his arms. "That's us." He hesitated before glancing back at the woman. "You'll be okay." She nodded, but there was something in her eyes that made him pause. "Yeah, thanks, Travis." He hadn't told her his name. The vet's examination took longer than expected. Max had a minor infection, and the bill was higher than Travis had hoped. Money was always tight. Being a single dad with a mountain of responsibilities meant every dollar counted. But Max was family, and Travis didn't hesitate to hand over his credit card, even though he knew it would sting later. When he and Harper stepped back into the waiting room, the woman was still there, her fingers curled around the handle of the cat carrier. She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "What happened?" he asked gently. She swallowed. "They need to run more tests. It's going to be expensive, but I'll do whatever it takes." Travis knew that feeling all too well. "Do you have someone to wait with you?" She hesitated. "No, I just moved here. I don't really know anyone yet." Without thinking, Travis sat down beside her. "Then we'll wait with you." Harper climbed onto the chair next to him, nodding eagerly. "Yes, Daddy says no one should be alone when they're scared." The woman let out a soft laugh, something warm flickering in her eyes. "Your dad is a good man." For the next hour, they talked. She introduced herself as Juliette Kensington, and he learned she had moved to town a few weeks ago for work. She didn't say what she did, but Travis didn't press. Instead, they swapped stories about their pets, their childhoods, and for the first time in a long time, Travis felt something shift inside him. Juliette was different. And he liked it. Travis adjusted Max's position in his arms as the veterinarian handed him a small bag of medication, giving final instructions about the puppy's recovery. Despite the weight of another unexpected expense pressing on his shoulders, he forced a reassuring smile for Harper. She had been so worried about Max, and the last thing he wanted was for her to pick up on his financial stress. As they stepped back into the waiting room, Juliette was still sitting there, her fingers nervously tapping against the plastic handle of Luna's carrier. When she looked up, relief flickered across her expression. "How's Max?" she asked softly. He'll be fine, Travis said. Just an infection. Some meds, some rest, and he'll be back to causing trouble in no time. Harper beamed, hugging Max gently. Daddy says Max is a little rascal, but I think he's just playful. Juliette chuckled, but the tension in her shoulders remained. It was clear she was still waiting for news about Luna. Travis hesitated. He didn't know this woman well, but something about her made him want to stay. Maybe it was the quiet sadness in her eyes, the way she held herself like she wasn't used to leaning on anyone. He knew that feeling all too well. "Do you have a ride home?" he asked. She blinked as if the thought hadn't even crossed her mind. "I walked here. It's not far." That didn't sit right with him. "It's dark out. Let me drive you." Juliette hesitated, glancing toward the reception desk as if debating whether to refuse. Harper, never one to let an opportunity slip, clapped her hands together. "Daddy's a really good driver. He even lets me pick the music." That earned a small laugh from Juliette. "Well, that's a pretty good deal." Travis could see the internal debate in her eyes. She wasn't the kind of person who asked for help easily. He understood that, but he also wasn't the kind of man who walked away when someone needed it. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, thank you." The drive to Juliette's place was quiet at first. Harper, exhausted from the long evening, dozed off in the back seat, Max curled up beside her. Travis kept his focus on the road, but he couldn't help sneaking glances at Juliette. She was staring out the window, her fingers twisting in her lap like she had too many thoughts running through her mind. "What brought you to town?" he asked eventually. She hesitated, a fresh start. That wasn't much of an answer, but he didn't push. He knew what it was like to need a new beginning. The street Juliette directed him to was quiet, lined with modest houses. Nothing about it stood out, but when he pulled into her driveway, something felt off. The house looked untouched. No lights on inside, no sign that anyone actually lived there. Juliette unbuckled her seatbelt, her expression unreadable. "Thanks for the ride." Travis frowned. "Are you sure you're okay?" She hesitated just a fraction too long, then she nodded. "Yeah." Lying. But she clearly wasn't ready to talk about it, so he let it go. For now. As she gathered Luna's carrier, he found himself saying, "If you need anything, you have my number." She looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. Then, finally, she nodded. "Good night, Travis." As he drove away, something about the whole situation didn't sit right with him. And for reasons he didn't fully understand, he couldn't shake the feeling that Juliette Kensington was keeping secrets. Travis didn't expect to see Juliette again so soon, but 3 days later, she was standing outside his auto repair shop, looking completely out of place against the backdrop of grease, tools, and the scent of motor oil. She was wearing dark jeans and a loose sweater, her hands tucked into the sleeves as if she were bracing against a chill that wasn't entirely from the weather. Her hair was pulled back, revealing the delicate curve of her jaw, and her expression was hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she should be here at all. Travis wiped his hands on a rag and stepped out from beneath the car he'd been working on. "Juliette." She let out a breath, relieved that he remembered her. "Hey, Travis, I need a favor." That wasn't what he expected. He glanced at the garage, where his younger brother, Declan, was elbow deep in an engine, oblivious to their conversation. Then he looked back at Juliette, noting the tension in her shoulders. "Come inside," he said, leading her past the rows of tires and toolboxes into the small, cluttered office at the back of the garage. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "What's going on?" She hesitated, as if debating how much to say. "My car broke down." Travis waited, sensing there was more. "I don't know what's wrong with it," she admitted. "I was on my way to work and it just died. Had to walk here." He frowned, Where's the car now? A few blocks away. I didn't want to leave it, but I didn't have a choice. A woman like Juliette didn't seem like the type to be stranded on the side of the road without options. Something didn't add up. I'll tow it in, take a look, he said. But Juliette, why didn't you call a service? Or a friend? Her fingers curled around the edge of the desk. I don't have many people to call. That answer sat heavy between them. Travis exhaled and grabbed his keys. Come on, let's go get your car. They walked in silence, the crisp autumn air wrapping around them. When they reached the vehicle, a sleek black Audi parked slightly crooked on the side of the road. Travis raised an eyebrow. This is yours. Juliette looked away as if embarrassed. Yeah. A car like this didn't belong to someone who struggled to pay vet bills. Travis didn't say anything, but as he hooked up the tow, his mind raced. Who exactly was Juliette Kensington? Back at the shop, he ran diagnostics while she sat nearby, watching nervously. After a few minutes, he straightened. Your alternator's shot. That's why it died. You'll need a new one. She chewed her lip. How long will that take? Depends if we have the part in stock. He glanced at Declan. Check inventory. Declan nodded and disappeared into the back. Juliette exhaled. I guess I'll have to figure out another way to get to work. Travis leaned against the desk. Where do you work? She hesitated. A real estate firm. That was vague. Before he could ask more, Declan returned. We've got the part. I can have it installed by this afternoon. Juliette looked relieved. That's great, thank you. Travis studied her for a moment before making a decision. Why don't I drive you to work? Her head jerked up. You don't have to do that. I know I don't, he said simply. She searched his face, then finally nodded. Okay. The drive was quiet at first, but as they neared the city, Juliette sighed. I feel like I owe you an explanation. Travis glanced at her. You don't. She let out a soft laugh. You're too decent, you know that. He didn't respond, just kept driving. I wasn't entirely honest before, she admitted. I do work in real estate, but I'm not just an employee. I own the company. Travis wasn't easily surprised, but that caught him off guard. You own it? She nodded. Kensington Properties. My father started it and when he passed, took over. That name rang a bell. Kensington Properties wasn't just a real estate firm, it was one of the biggest in the state. Travis let out a low whistle. That's a lot. She smiled wryly. Yeah, it is. Then why were you sitting alone in a vet's office, acting like you couldn't afford the bill? Her fingers tightened in her lap. Because money doesn't fix everything. The honesty in her voice caught him off guard. She looked out the window. I grew up with everything, but it never felt like mine. The company, the expectations, it's exhausting. She turned back to him. I moved here to get away from all that, to prove I could do this on my own. Travis understood that more than she knew. He pulled up in front of a sleek glass building. Juliette unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move. Thank you. For what? For not treating me differently now that you know. Travis met her eyes. You think money changes the kind of person I am? She searched his face, then shook her head. No, don't. Something passed between them, something unspoken but undeniable. Then she slid out of the truck, and Travis watched her walk into the building, wondering why a woman with everything would look at him like he was the only person who had ever really seen her. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and unexpected closeness. Travis hadn't planned on seeing Juliette so often, but somehow she kept finding her way back into his life. Or maybe he kept finding his way into hers. She showed up at the shop with coffee one morning, claiming she was just in the neighborhood, even though the nearest high-end coffee place was 15 minutes away. He found reasons to drive her places when her car was in the shop longer than expected, though he suspected she could have easily called a driver. Harper adored her. That was the real surprise. His daughter, who was usually cautious around new people, had taken to Juliette like they'd known each other forever. Juliette listened to her stories, laughed at her jokes, and even sat through an entire afternoon of watching her draw pictures of Max and Luna together. Something was happening between them, something neither of them said aloud, but both clearly felt. One evening, after a particularly long day at the garage, Travis found himself driving toward Juliette's house without even thinking about it. He wasn't sure why. Maybe he just wanted to see if she was okay. When he pulled up, she was sitting on the front steps, barefoot, a glass of wine in her hand. Her gaze lifted as he got out of the truck, something soft and unreadable in her eyes. "Didn't take you for the kind of man who makes house calls," she said, tilting her head. He walked up the steps and sat beside her. "Didn't take you for the kind of woman who waits outside like she's expecting someone." She huffed out a quiet laugh, swirling the wine in her glass. "Maybe I was." The air between them shifted. Travis glanced at the glass in her hand. "Rough day." "You could say that." She set the wine down beside her and leaned back on her palms, staring up at the sky. "A deal fell through, a big one. My board is furious." He studied her profile, the way the glow from the porch light illuminated her features. "Does it matter? The money, I mean." She sighed. "Not to me, but to them, it's everything." Travis didn't know much about corporate life, but he knew what it was like to carry expectations that didn't feel like your own. "You ever think about walking away?" he asked. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "All the time." Something in the confession made his chest tighten. He reached for her hand before he could think better of it. Her fingers curled around his, hesitant at first, then surer. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted softly. "Me neither," he said, "but I know when something feels right." Juliette inhaled sharply, her gaze dropping to their joined hands. When she looked up again, something in her eyes had changed. Then, without a word, she leaned in. Travis met her halfway. The kiss was soft and slow, a question as much as an answer. Her lips were warm against his, tentative at first, like she wasn't sure she was allowed this. He deepened it just enough to show her that she was. When they pulled apart, she let out a breathless laugh. "I didn't plan on that happening." He brushed a thumb over her knuckles. "Neither did I." She rested her forehead against his shoulder for a moment, then sat back. "I should probably warn you my life is complicated." Travis gave her a small grin. "Lucky for you, don't scare easy." Juliette studied him for a long moment, then squeezed his hand. "Then, I guess you're stuck with me." And somehow, that was exactly what he wanted. Travis stood in the middle of his garage, hands braced on his hips, his mind a tangle of thoughts. Juliette Kensington was complicated, that much was clear, but walking away from her had never even crossed his mind. If anything, he found himself drawn deeper. She came by the shop more often now, bringing coffee or just sitting nearby while he worked, as if she found comfort in his presence. He caught her staring sometimes, like she was trying to figure out why she felt so at ease around a man like him. And he had his own questions, what was a woman like her doing with a man like him? But every time she smiled at him, every time she leaned in just a little closer when he spoke, he stopped wondering. Some things didn't need answers. One evening, just as he was closing up, Juliette showed up, looking more exhausted than he'd ever seen her. Without a word, he locked the garage door behind him and gestured toward his truck. "Come on," he said. She didn't hesitate. They drove in silence for a while, the hum of the road filling the space between them. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't need to. She had that look again, the one that said she was carrying too much, like the weight of her world was pressing down on her shoulders. When they reached the outskirts of town, he pulled into a wide open field, the sky stretching endlessly above them. Juliette frowned as she stepped out of the truck, wrapping her arms around herself. What is this place? Travis leaned against the hood, just somewhere quiet. She let out a breath, her posture relaxing slightly. I needed this. He watched her for a moment before speaking. You don't always have to carry everything alone, you know. She exhaled sharply. That's the thing, Travis. I don't know how to do anything else. You could start by letting me in. She turned to face him fully, the fading sunlight casting a golden glow over her features. I don't want to drag you into my mess. He reached for her hand, linking their fingers together. Too late. Her laugh was soft, almost disbelieving. You really don't scare easy, do you? Not when it comes to you. Juliette's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering in her eyes. I think I'm falling for you, Travis. His heart kicked hard in his chest. He had known it, felt it in every lingering glance, every touch that lasted a second too long. But hearing her say it, that was something else entirely. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her cheek. Good, he murmured, because I've been falling for you since the day we met. She let out a shaky breath, then surged forward, pressing her lips to his. This kiss wasn't tentative like the first, it was certain, filled with the kind of relief that came with finally surrendering. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. What happens now? We figure it out, he said simply, together. For the first time in a long time, Juliette looked like she believed that was possible. Travis never thought of himself as a man who overanalyzed things. He had built his life on instinct, on hard work, on knowing when to push forward and when to step back. But with Juliette, everything felt different. Every moment with her carried weight, every glance, every touch, every word. She was in his world now, and he was in hers. And somehow, against all odds, it felt right. But the world she had left behind wasn't so easily shaken. One morning, as he was tightening the last bolt on a client's engine, a sleek black sedan pulled into the lot. The kind of car that didn't belong here. The kind of car that screamed wealth, power, and a life far removed from the grease-stained hands of a mechanic. Travis wiped his hands with a rag as a man stepped out, dressed in a tailored suit, his expression cool and unreadable. You Travis O'Connor. Travis nodded, waiting. The man crossed the gravel with measured steps. I'm Richard Calloway. I work for Kensington Properties. More specifically, I work for Juliette's board. Travis already didn't like him. Richard glanced around the garage, his gaze lingering on the tools, the oil-streaked floor, the worn-down workbenches. When he turned back to Travis, his expression held something close to pity. I don't think we need to play games here, Richard said. You know why I'm here. Travis folded his arms, unmoved. Enlighten me. Richard exhaled, as if dealing with someone beneath his usual standards of conversation. Juliette is a woman of considerable influence. She has responsibilities, obligations, and she's currently making decisions that are, let's say, unwise. Travis felt the simmer of anger beneath his skin, but he kept his voice calm. If you're here to tell me that Juliette can't make her own choices, you're wasting your time. Richard didn't flinch. I'm here to remind you that Juliette doesn't belong in this world. She has an empire to run, a name to uphold, and playing house with a mechanic, that's not part of the plan. Travis clenched his jaw. He could take a lot, but no one, not this man, not anyone was going to waltz in and tell him that he wasn't good enough for Juliette. You think she's playing house? Travis asked. That this is some phase she'll grow out of? Richard's silence was answer enough. Travis took a step closer, his voice steady. Then you don't know her as well as you think." Richard's expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. "She's worked her entire life for what she has. Don't let your pride get in the way of what's best for her." Travis stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "The only person who gets to decide what's best for Juliette is Juliette." Richard studied him, as if trying to decide whether to push further. Then, with a slight nod, he turned and walked back to his car. Travis stood there, watching the sedan disappear down the road, his fists still clenched at his sides. He had never doubted his place in Juliette's life, not until now. That evening, when Juliette arrived at the garage, Travis was still sorting through his emotions. She walked in with that effortless grace of hers, but there was something searching in her gaze when she saw him. "Something's wrong," she said. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I had a visitor today, Richard Calloway." Her expression darkened. "What did he say?" Travis hesitated. "That you don't belong here, that I don't belong with you." Juliette's eyes flashed. He had no right. Travis stepped forward, cupping her face, forcing her to look at him. "I don't care what he thinks. I need to know if you do." She grabbed his wrists, holding on to him like he was the only steady thing in her world. "Travis, you are the only thing that makes sense to me right now. I don't care about the board, about their expectations. I care about you." His chest tightened. "Then tell me what you want, Juliette." She didn't hesitate. "You." That was all he needed. He kissed her with everything he had, all the frustration, all the need, all the love he hadn't fully put into words yet. And when she kissed him back, just as fierce, just as certain, he knew this wasn't temporary. This wasn't something she would walk away from. And neither would he. Weeks passed, and Juliette made her choice clear. She stepped down from the board, turning her role into something she could manage on her own terms, no longer bound by expectations she never wanted. Travis watched her transform, watched her find joy in the simplest things: mornings at the garage, dinners with Harper, long walks with Max and Luna. She was happier, lighter, and he knew, without a doubt, that she had chosen this life. One evening, as they sat on his back porch, Juliette curled against his side, Travis reached into his pocket. His heart pounded, but he had never been more certain of anything in his life. He took her hand, pressing something into her palm. When she opened it, her breath hitched. A simple ring, elegant and timeless. Nothing flashy, nothing grand, just real, just them. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Travis swallowed hard. "I don't have a mansion or a fortune or a name that means anything to the world. But I have this, I have you, and Harper, and a life I never thought I'd get to have. And if you'll have me, I want forever." Juliette's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she whispered, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and then she was in his arms, kissing him like she never wanted to let go. And he knew, without a doubt, she never would. A year later, under a sky full of stars, they stood in the backyard of the home they'd built together, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Harper twirled in her dress, Max and Luna curled up near the porch, and as Travis took Juliette's hands in his, he knew this was it. There were no doubts, no fears, just love. As they exchanged vows, as they sealed their forever with a kiss, Travis knew that no matter where life took them, as long as they had each other, they had everything. And that was all they would ever need.